So your foot has to be stable. You have an arch in it. If you have a flat foot, you're already unstable. So a lot of times we look at the shoe and trying to build a support structure around the foot. The ankle should be a mobile joint. It's really good at moving in every direction. The knee should be a stable joint. It's good at moving in 2 planes. It can move in 3, but it doesn't really like to move sideways. The hip is a mobile joint. The lower back is a stable joint. The thoracic spine is a mobile joint. So the body works in an alternating pattern of stable segments connected to mobile joints. So what the physical assessment screen does is it tells me if that is intact. And in fact, if it is, then you should be able to swing the golf club any way any golf professional asks you to swing it or teaches you to swing it.
Hi, I'm Lauren Parsons.
And I'm Andy Jackson, and this is the All Well Co podcast.
Dive deep with us as leading experts share their unique perspectives on topics such as recovery, sleep, movement, and the latest innovations in the space.
Well, welcome, Dave. It's a real pleasure to have you as a guest on the All Well Co podcast. And, before we dive into your unique perspective, just give our audience an idea, an overview of how we met, how you met All Well Co, and how you got connected into us.
Yeah, actually, we referred through Luke Lloyd Davis, who was one of your guests before, and then there's another gentleman by the name of Mike Wassilison, who I've done some work with in the movement.
Oh, Mike at Move You.
Yeah, Move You. So Mike went through a lot of our early classes that we used to do, and we kind of guided him along his way, and he's a great guy. So they spoke very highly of you guys, and I know we're doing some things with For Wellness with you, and that's kind of how we got connected.
No, that's also Luke. Yeah, Luke's he's awesome with us. He's been so supportive on all sorts of things with us. It's actually you told me the other day he's in the top 3 actually of the podcast episodes. His episode is right.
Really, yeah. Well,
he's right up there.
Yeah. He's got a
he's
very
so great.
unique background.
Yeah. People like him. People liked his episode.
Sure.
Well, obviously, I won't hold this against you being Scottish, but I know you were born in England, but you were raised in Africa. Where in Africa were you raised? Was it South Africa?
Yeah, no, it wasn't actually. I was born in England, left when I was very young, 6 months old, and really grew up in Kenya, and then all over Africa. I actually lived in Botswana and for a short time in South Africa, and then also in Uganda and Tanzania and all over that region. So growing up, I had a very unique perspective and, was kind of thrust into a whole nother culture. And it's really all I knew as a young kid. So it was amazing and still is amazing.
Well, I'm fascinated by that. I expected you to say South Africa, and then I was going to start talking about rugby and all that type of stuff. So this is even better. So you said it gave you a unique perspective. So how did that, and how does that influence who you are now, that being brought up in Africa?
Well, Africa is kind of like this, it's like really going back to nature. And in many ways, I think about that now, right? And when I do go back and visit, it's like going back to like this new era of a country being born. There's still so much beauty in Africa and so many incredible people that really don't have anything, but they're still happy. And, I always used to tell my kids who are older now, but, one of my memories in Africa is I always remember kids running along the side of the road with a tire and a stick. And that was the only toy they had. And they had this beaming smile on their face and this energy. And, I think it gave me a very worldwide perspective. I've lived not only in Africa, I lived in the Middle East, the Far East. I lived in Papua New Guinea. I've actually lived in 27 different countries. And when you live in that kind of lifestyle and you go through that, you have to adapt. You have to blend in very quickly, especially when I went to 13 different high schools, I think.
13.
In and out very quickly to different places. So you have this kind of chameleon. You become kind of a chameleon in that you learn how to adapt. And it gives you a very unique perspective now, especially, where I am in my life now and what I've been involved with and what I continue to do, that you have this kind of global view. I kind of see things as if I'm a drone, not right. So much broader view.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I've always said to my kids, get out and travel. And actually my daughter is lucky enough, she worked in the National Health Service in the UK, and they give them a year off. Yeah. And then guarantee their job when they come back. So she literally just hiked Machu Picchu. She was at 5,300 meters, 16,000 feet yesterday on some Glacier and stuff doing that. I couldn't agree with you more. It's so important for people to get out of their little bubble.
It is, and it's unique in that, the world is a big place, and in many ways there's beauty everywhere. There's also, bad things everywhere too. But we look at the perspective of, we live in America now, and I have for a long time, and I built my businesses here, and it is the greatest country in the world. It offers you more perspective and more opportunity. But when you come from another country, you have a different perspective, and I think you realize how incredibly lucky we are to live in a place like this.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So you're often described as a visionary thinker with a passion for teaching and learning. How did you cultivate this mindset early in life? And I think we started to talk about it there, but how has that also kept you driven along the way?
Well, I think because of my upbringing, I've had a very broad perspective on things, right? You see things from a different lens. And I think, as a coach, I've always been one of these people that keep looking for things other people aren't looking at. And then as an entrepreneur and getting involved with business, it was the same thing. I just started taking what I learned in order to get better and to help my players in golf get better. And as a high performance coach, you're always looking for an edge. And, I've been around some of the greatest of all time players. I've interviewed a lot of them. And when you sit down with them, they change their sport. That's why they're the GOATs, right? They're not just great, they actually change their sport. That's why they're the best at what they do. I think in coaching, there's coaches that do that as well. And they do that by looking for things and looking in places that no one else looks. And it's very easy when you're in the same trenches every day and you have the same routine every day to start getting kind of bottlenecked, and you need to get out. You need to open the doors. And I've always had that because of the life I grew up in. So I'm constantly looking into other sports, other athletes, other nutrition, other this, just looking for perspectives that nobody may be bringing into my world. And that has kind of given me that broad horizon that I have.
Yeah, that's awesome. I had a couple of really good personal trainers growing up. I played volleyball and they were huge on cross training. I think that's just a small perspective of kind of what you're talking through there, how important it is for the body, mechanics, even just your mindset. So I think that's really neat. You, together with Dr. Gray Rose, created the world's true first golf performance facility, Titleist Performance Institute. What inspired the creation of this, and what challenges did you guys encounter when you were launching it?
Yeah, I think what inspired it was no one else was doing it, right? No one else, there wasn't an Olympic type training center just for golf. There was the Olympic centers. And in some other countries, they were doing a really good job. Like Australia had the Australian Institute of Sport, and there's the GBI Institute of Sport. America really doesn't have an Institute of Sport, right? They have the Olympic, and that's it. And part of that is because the college programs are so big that they kind of do it on their own. And a lot of other countries don't have access to those kind of things. So when I met my partner, Dr. Greg Rose, who's one of the foremost people in the world on movement and biomechanics, he actually helped develop something called the functional movement screen that they use in the NFL and the NHL and so on and so forth. And basically, the more I met with him, the more I realized that there are a lot of things that aren't being done in golf. And so we developed this kind of idea around looking at things differently and starting with the body. And we developed a very simple assessment screen that basically looks at a joint by joint approach to find out how you move. And once I know how you move, it really makes it very simple for me to address why you can't do what you do. And so movement is key in any athletic development, as you know, as an athlete, that basically, if you're trying to be like somebody else, you probably got no chance, right?
Exactly.
You got to be a better version of you and learn how to, create skills around who you are, because we're all presented with different things. So that was kind of the crux of how we developed TPI, and that I had a relationship with Titleist, who was a big, golf company, and the CEO was a good friend. And I remember taking him to meet with Greg. Greg had opened the first indoor kind of golf facility where they were looking at the body and biomechanics. And I took him down there, and I remember driving him back to the airport. And he said, that's the future of golf instruction. You need to get and spend more time with Greg. And if we can help you put something together, let us know. And so I went back to him with this idea of building really the ultimate training center for golf, where we didn't just look at equipment, but we looked at the body, the mind, the brain, the blood, biomechanics, kinetics, kinematics. And we have a 40-acre facility in Southern California that's dedicated to that.
Just quickly, if you're enjoying the episodes thus far, it would mean a lot to us if you follow and subscribe. Your support helps us continue to bring on incredible guests and share meaningful conversations and stories. Thank you for being a part of the journey. Wow. Did you go through any challenges while you were creating it, putting it together?
You always go through challenges in that you first develop something really cool, and then everybody wants you, and they want, Greg and I were inundated working 15 hours a day every day. We would show up at 5 in the morning and we'd be there till 10 at night. And you just start, and you don't really know where you're going to go. And then you realize that you have no time to do anything else, and that you need to scale a business. And that's where the business side comes in. And how do you create scalability to any idea that you have? Successful businesses, that's what they do. So we developed a certification class that basically did something that no one else had done. And that's where we have certifications for medical professionals, fitness professionals, and golf professionals. And we developed this online certification and live certification class. We now have like 8 different levels, and that is growing pretty large. In fact, we're now at over 33,000 TPI certified experts in 64 countries, and we educate in 10 different languages.
Wow. Congratulations. That's not small.
Yeah, that's not small. It's interesting what you said there, because we've had a few other people on here, people like Greg Roscoff, who works with Bryson DeChambeau and stuff. They've all said the same thing, is that it becomes an issue when everybody wants them. And you've then got to be able to replicate it. So congratulations on being able to replicate that and create a certification, because that's not easy, because you're right, everybody wants you.
They do. And it doesn't matter who you train, once you're the name on the door and you're the people, they want you. And so your time becomes, very valuable. And, you could probably charge whatever you want, but there's a part of you that goes, that's kind of bad. Like, I shouldn't be charging that much money for a 12-year-old kid that wants to come see me,
Yeah.
And it's tough because you go through these stages, where now I work primarily with elite golfers, the best in the world, although we still do have programs for amateur golfers as well.
I love that. So we actually have a new feature on our podcast where members of the community write in and ask questions for future guests. So Jimmy O'Donnell is a scratch golfer and a good friend of the community, and he's very curious about the TPI screening process. So specifically, he asked, what markers are you looking for when you screen an individual?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the first thing we're really doing is the body works in an alternating pattern of stable segments connected to mobile joints, right? So your foot has to be stable. You have an arch in it. If you have a flat foot, you're already unstable. So a lot of times we look at the shoe and trying to build a support structure around the foot. The ankle should be a mobile joint. It's really good at moving in every direction. The knee should be a stable joint. It's good at moving in 2 planes. It can move in 3, but it doesn't really like to move sideways. The hip is a mobile joint. The lower back is a stable joint. The thoracic spine is a mobile joint. So the body works in an alternating pattern of stable segments connected to mobile joints. So what the physical assessment screen does is it tells me if that is intact. And in fact, if it is, then you should be able to swing the golf club any way any golf professional asks you to swing it or teaches you to swing it. But unfortunately, life gets in the way, and some of us have injuries. Pre-existing injuries can be a big factor in determining what you can do next. And then some of us are just born a certain way. Some of us born with hip sockets that don't rotate that well, and so on and so forth. So what the screen does immediately, it's not for the student, it's for me. And the reason it's for me is so that I never tell the students something to do that they can't physically do, because otherwise they're going to struggle. And golf's a hard sport. And a lot of reason why it's hard is you're being told to do something, not that's necessarily wrong. Everybody that's a teacher is trying to do the best job they can. But if they don't physically check that you can actually do it, that's when problems occur. And you don't get better. You get frustrated. The student gets frustrated. The coach gets frustrated. And you usually part ways and they go off looking for somebody else, right? And so to me, in his case, that's what we do. The physical screen takes literally 7 to 10 minutes. We have an app. We punch the results into an app, and it immediately tells me pretty much what's going to happen in your golf swing, and what the body swing correlation is. Is it your hip? Is it your thoracic spine? Is it your shoulder? What is it? And then we go to work. We build a plan on physical fitness, mobility. What is it? In some cases, it can be power, can be strength. A lot of people want to hit the golf ball further. And some people can be strong, but they're not explosively strong. You can deadlift a house in the gym, but you can't vertical jump. Well, maybe I need explosiveness in my sport. And so then you have to figure out, what have they got? They're strong, but they're not elastic. So there's mobility. This mobility stability model has been talked about a lot in different, sports for a long time. But we really built in a screen for golf that looks at that.
That's awesome. Are there more frequent physical limitations that lead to more common swing flaws?
Yeah, I mean, probably the biggest one is hip mobility. So, most people today sit a lot. And when you sit a lot, whether it's on planes or in your office, the hip flexor gets short, the hamstring gets tight. All of a sudden, the glute turns off and all the load is going to your lower back. So most people that complain of a lower back problem, or wherever the pain is, you usually go at the joint below and the joint above, and you'll find your answer. Because where the pain is isn't usually where the problem is, unless you get hit by somebody. It's usually because dysfunction is occurring somewhere. And as a result, you don't have the mobility or the movement. So the part, it's like a joint that should be stable is now becoming mobile because the other joints aren't working and supporting it.
Yep, overcompensation. That sounds like somebody I know.
Yes. I was and still am a mad keen cyclist, and used to do all the tours. So I used to sit on my bike and do that sort of stuff. And obviously I'm mad keen about golf. And this year I found out I've got a cluneal nerve problem that's coming in as a result of exactly what you just said. It's a result of not being able to extend backwards. It's a result of hip mobility and it causes me limitation on the golf course. It's so I've been working pretty hard there with one of our other podcast guys who does a similar thing to you. He's called Grant, who's got a thing called Rehab Fix.
Okay.
And he just literally did it. All my chiropractic friends were horrified.
Yeah.
And I said, oh yeah, we just did it online. He did an assessment with me on video. He then gave me these exercises that I then followed, and I've been doing them now for about 3 or 4 months, and touch wood, it's getting better. So all in the lower, and some weird things. He has me pulling my skin and all sorts of interesting things to shut this nerve off. It's very weird stuff, isn't it, that he does. So obviously up to you if some of this is confidential, but can you share a few stories about some tour pros who basically experienced this improvement, the significant improvement in their golf performance as a result of developing their strength, mobility, and flexibility versus technique practices?
Well, yeah, probably one of the most well-documented is, I've coached Jon Rahm, who's one of the best players in the world since college. And Jon was presented to us with a very unusual set of circumstances. When I first met Jon, I used to do some work for the Spanish Golf Federation. And they called me up and said, hey, we've got this Spanish kid going to Arizona State University or ASU, and he's in San Diego. Could you take a look at him? And I'm like, absolutely, love to see him. So he came out to our facility. I remember watching him at golf balls on the range, and I was like, wow, this is different. The strike was different. I went inside, grabbed Greg. I go, there's something unusual going on here. Just his movement pattern doesn't look like something I've seen before. And Greg came out and we looked and we both agreed. We were like, can we screen you? And he's like, yeah. We take him in the gym and we literally find, he had a club foot when he was a kid. They had to break his ankle. His right shoe is a size 10.5. That right foot's 10.5 extra wide. Left is 13. Right calf is small. Left calf is big.
Wow.
Right leg is short. Left calf is a little bit longer. He has some unusual wrist conditions, and that he has great flexion on his lead wrist, but limited extension. So when you start looking at his golf swing, everything started to make sense. And, we were the first guys to go, listen, Jon, don't ever change your golf swing. And he started laughing. He goes, you're the first guys that have ever told me not to change my golf swing. He said, everybody's been trying to change it. I go, no, it is functioning because of how your body is. So let me teach you how to use it. And let's build a team around you to make sure that you don't break down. And that's what we did. So we have a great team around Jon of physical fitness, medical professionals, and we run his program based on his movement. So every Monday he gets screened. If you screen somebody regularly, like weekly, like we do, you can immediately see the differences in their movement. If you wait every quarter and you do it once a quarter or once a month, on an elite level athlete, you need your eyes on them constantly, right? It's like a doctor that's doing surgery. If they're doing it a lot, they see things that no one sees. Well, we're the same way. So by looking at him every week, we can see the slight anomalies and we can decide what the practice protocol should be. Should we shut him down? Should we give him more rest? Does he need physical therapy? So before we're even hitting balls and training the golf swing, we're really looking at the movement pattern. And that dictates how we run his plan throughout the week. And then it also dictates his recovery. So having an understanding of that and building that team, it's probably one of the most unique athletes that has achieved number one in the world and has won a couple of major championships and, been on the Ryder Cup team and the Olympic team. And he's exceptional in what he does.
There's hope for me, Lauren. Because in the 1 out of 10 times I hit the ball well, my friends say I hit the ball like Jon Rahm.
There you go.
Slightly less swing, less. I don't take such a full swing to actually do. So
that's the thing, Jon has a very short swing, but there's a lot of things. When you have players with mass, like Jon has, he's a big guy, and a big guy has a lot of mass. So he doesn't have to move his body as fast as like a Rory McIlroy does to be able to make it work. We saw Rory McIlroy when he was 17, 18, and he was complaining of low back pain. And, he came through our assessment and we said, you need to get stronger so that you can support what you're creating. And he did. He took off, built a team around himself, and has done an exceptional job. And again, is one of the best players in the world. But it's driven by the body. And for those of you out there that are athletes or are young athletes wanting to be the next superstars, don't neglect. There's a lot of people who are like, you got to work hard. Yes, that's a given. You've got to do the work, but you must listen to your body and you must get a team around you that protects it. Otherwise, you won't be doing any work.
Mm-hmm.
It's actually, we had, you probably know Brendan McLaughlin.
Sure.
You probably know Brendan well. He was one of our podcast guests. That was one of the things that he was talking a lot about, was this holistic approach, is that, you don't just look at technique, you got to look at diet and got to look at things on a daily basis. So that's good to hear. So if I was to come by TPI, your beautiful place down in California, what does an actual day look like? And is it only available to pros, or can people book days there? How does this work?
Yeah, I mean, they can definitely book days there. If they're trying to see Greg or I, our schedule is limited. And the reason it's limited is we only do 2 assessments a day. So it takes us 3 to 4 hours with each person. And, we're looking at kinematics, kinetics, physical assessment screen, maybe vision, like every little thing. It'll take us an hour and a half just to collect data. And then we'll sit down in like our war room and we'll decide, okay, here's the plan of attack we would take. A lot of people come with their coaches, like other coaches, because they're not going to get us as their daily coaches. So we deal with a lot of teams. So a lot of teams come in with their players. We take them through our assessment. And so, those are 3-hour sessions. So we only do 2 a day. And, our schedule's usually pretty much full 6 months in advance. We will release a calendar probably. I mean, some of our tour stuff is already booked in, but there will be some dates that are released probably end of January next year. And you can see the rest of the year. And I would get on, if there's one open and you're interested in coming, I would get on it right away because, 2 a day, there's not many days in the year, and we're not working every day because we have tour commitments and travel commitments and so on and so forth. So it isn't easy to see us. We do have other things going on there. If someone wants to just come and get fitted for golf equipment, that can be booked. There's a calendar for that. And then we built this network. So, the beauty of TPI is that you can experience it in your local neighborhood. So if you go on the mytpi.com website and simply put in, find an expert, and you put in your zip code, you will find somebody in your area that's been TPI certified. That could be medical if you're dealing with pain or injury, fitness if you're looking to get stronger or more powerful, or golf. You're trying to evaluate and get an evaluation of your golf swing as it relates to your body. There's probably somebody in your local area right now that could do that immediately.
So let's jump into that. That's, great timing. So I read that you've trained and certified like over 23,000 experts since 2004. So there'll be a lot of people here who are professionals who are going, oh yeah, I'd love to take the certification. So how do I certify? what pre-qualifications do I need, and how does someone who's done nothing, no qualifications, get started on this path?
Sure. So basically, everybody starts with level one. It's our kind of first stage, and that is where you get an introduction to what we call the body swing connection. You need to learn something about the body and the movement screen. We teach you the movement screen and our philosophy. And our philosophy is very simple. We don't believe there's any one way to swing. We believe there's thousands of ways to swing, but we do believe there's an efficient way for each of you, but it's based on what you can physically do. It sounds like I've said that quite a few times, right?
Yeah, it's
So
okay.
basically, that is our philosophy. So level one basically teaches you that philosophy. And you come in, and right now it's online. We do some live ones, but it's an online lecture series, level one, and you can take it at your own pace. And then you can move on to level two. Now, level two is like the next stage. And the next stage, we look at your credentials. Are you a medical professional, a fitness professional, a golf professional? And then you go down your own track. We don't stop anybody from getting education. If a medical professional wants to take the golf track or the fitness track, they can do that. We just look at your qualifications and say, well, you're making your primary living as a physical therapist or a chiropractor. You should really follow the medical track. So we kind of give you majors and minors. We call you a medical professional, TPI certified medical professional, but you can be a minor in golf, fitness, power, junior,
Okay.
because you
Right.
want to learn, and kind of that's how it works.
Very cool. So Jimmy, our community member, also wanted to know what your vision was for future ventures that would support golfers in the pursuit of peak performance. So TPI related, let's say.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, I think most of, or a lot of my work now is looking at the brain, like neuroscience. We're starting to be able to, rather than shove needles in people's heads, which isn't fun because I've had it done. There's technology now that we can actually get some really good baseline information from the brain without putting sensors directly into the brain. And as a result, that opens up a world where if I can understand how you learn and I can understand how you think about processes, then I can help design practice programs and developmental programs that are tailored specifically towards you, right? I think at the highly elite level, like if you look at the best in the world, I think everybody that is a professional at the highest level has some form of, I want to call it ADD, ADHD, maybe on the spectrum, whatever you call it. And I think that's a benefit. I think that those people can be highly focused in some sports if you pick the right sport for them for a very critical amount of time. In golf, I need you focused for 2 seconds. That's it, right? So the rest of the time, if you're telling me, well, I got to be focused for 5 hours, you will not be very good. You cannot be focused for 5 hours.
No
But if
chance.
you can just relax and show up to that golf ball and get yourself into a zone for 2 seconds and hit the golf ball, and then relax again and go find it and hit it again, then you can get yourself in a mental state that can be very high level. And I'm studying that. I think that is really the future of sport, is starting to customize programs based on the way you think and based on each person's way of learning. Because there are exceptional learners that don't do good on tests. There are a lot of people that fail exams but are brilliant, and I'm looking for those.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm actually going tomorrow for a brain mapping session myself with a local neuroscientist. I sadly got diagnosed with focal epilepsy as a result of concussions
Yeah.
back in December.
Okay.
And I'm on a drug called lamotrigine that basically supports it, but it's actually a center that's funded by Von Miller, the NFL guy, and they get a lot of NFL guys there with concussions there.
Are you going? Where are you going to? I mean, because there's a couple of clinics that do this that I know of that are exceptionally good, and they're dealing with traumatic.
Yeah, so I'm going to one of the local experts here
Local.
that's linked to this. They rightly so have said, Andy, I know you're on the lowest dose of this and you can go up to where the studies were done, but eventually your brain's going to get used to this. So they're going to do some mapping. Then they want to do some different eye and other techniques that are non-medication related. So I'm fascinated tomorrow to see what this is like. So I'm literally going for my cap on brain minute. I've had all the EEGs and all the MRIs and all of that sort of stuff done already. But I'm intrigued to see, like you, I'm always looking for something different. So
Yeah,
I'm
I
fascinated
would
to
look
see
at
what.
hyperbaric, and
Yeah.
there's a specific company called the Viv Clinics. There's only one in the U.S., and they deal with a lot of traumatic injuries from military, but also concussion syndrome. And the Pittsburgh Steelers have done a big project with them as well.
Yeah.
Pittsburgh Steelers
Yeah.
from Pittsburgh, and I'm a
Yeah.
Steelers fan.
Well, there
How
you go.
funny is that?
They're one of their doctors there has done more on concussion syndrome and how to fix it and how to regrow, stuff in the brain to stop that happening. So you should definitely look at that.
Yeah, look that up. That's
Yeah.
incredible. Yeah.
Which doctor? Because back in the day, I did concussion research at UPMC.
I think it's Dr. Lou. I can't remember Lou's last name. I'll try and find it
That's
for you.
okay.
I
Just
can't remember
curious,
that.
because there's some overlap there from
Yeah.
my research there. So switching gears a little bit, what was the inspiration behind starting For Wellness with Phil Mickelson? And was there a moment or insight that sparked the idea to create a wellness brand?
So yeah, there was two things there. So first of all, my love for coffee started growing up in Kenya. So I started studying coffee as a hobby. My dad used to give me a cup of black coffee when I was 6 years old. I wouldn't suggest that for 6 years old, but he was a pretty tough guy and said, this is the best thing you put in your body. And don't tell your mom I'm giving you coffee at 6 years old. But I would have a cup of black coffee then. And I still only have one cup of coffee a day, and it's usually black, and I make it very specifically. But that started kind of like this love affair with coffee, where I started to study coffee and the benefits of coffee. Coffee on its own, black coffee is one of the highest antioxidant profiles on the planet. It's higher than blueberries and a lot of things. It's what we put in coffee and how we make coffee that can destroy it. But it is very, very good for you. And there's a lot of research studies around that. So that was my love for coffee. As I traveled as a performance coach, every country I went to, I would find a local coffee shop and try a local bean and just started learning more about coffee. And then Phil Mickelson, who's been a good friend of mine for 20 something years, our kids grew up together, just being around golf, although I've never coached Phil, I've kind of coached him on life and a little bit about what I've learned, behind the scenes. And basically, a lot of this was driven around he was stricken with psoriatic arthritis. And I just started studying what that was. I was like, geez, my friend's stricken with this, it's really kind of could be crippling for a lot of people. And is there something that I could make for him or do for him? And being around athletes and performance consultants and nutritionists, and I'm constantly looking at what products the best athletes are putting in their body. And then I usually research them. I'm just inquisitive like that. I like to know. And so I go down these studies, and basically I started like a grandmother in the kitchen making something for Phil that he could put in his coffee. And it was MCT powder. It had some collagen in it that's good for your hair, your skin, and your nails. And then it had some cinnamon, which is good for inflammation. MCT powder makes you feel full. L-theanine, which is a amino acid, comes from green tea, actually calms down the caffeine jitters, because as a golfer, you don't want to be shaking with coffee. And then Himalayan rock salt takes away acidity in coffee, and coffee is naturally acidic. So I just started making this concoction for him, and I was like, I want you to try this. And I would add some other stuff. He liked almond milk. And then we used to put a little Manuka honey in his coffee as well, which is another incredible product. And he started making it. I gave him the recipe. I showed him how to make it. And he just started making it. And then about 3 or 4 months later, he started to feel no symptoms of arthritis, nothing, no joint pain, nothing. Now, I'm not claiming that what we did was it, but he weaned himself off the medication that he was using. And he's been drinking it ever since. And he's never been sick. He's never, and this has been a while now, and he's never had any arthritic pain since that. So it could be a combination. It could be placebo. There are some things in there that can definitely maybe help your inflammation. And it was just the start of this journey that created For Wellness, and that he would tell people about it, make them coffee, and they'd be like, oh, this is so good. How do I get it? And then I kind of found through some friends a supplier, and next thing we knew, we started this company. I looked for a name because it was wellness, and I couldn't believe that nobody owned the name For Wellness. And we got the
Yeah.
name For Wellness. And then I started making this. We call it the good stuff. It's a supplement that you put in coffee and mix it up. You can add some milk if you want, or some honey to sweeten it. But it is good, and the stuff in it is good. And we have a cinnamon flavored and a mocha flavor, and we're going to soon launch a vanilla flavor for that as well. And then we have these superfood energy bites that Phil was experimenting with intermittent fasting. And yet, athletes, it's not a good idea to fast during your sport. You don't realize when you're in an athletic endeavor how much your brain is burning energy. Thinking about what next shot I should hit, or, bike riding, what I got to do next to get you're burning energy constantly. So basically what we did is created these superfood energy bites that are only 90 calories. They're all organic. They use raw ingredients, gluten-free. They're very good. And they kind of fill that void without giving you a full meal. They're a little kind of 10 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the afternoon snack. And we created those. And then lo and behold, I created a line of gummies just because I was looking at ingredients that athletes were taking. And we created 2 gummies, one for inflammation, one for hydration. And we have another one coming for focus. And they're amazing. And they're all, I have a food scientist that looks at the ingredients, and then we formulate them according to, what your kind of minimal viable product, what your body actually needs to make a difference. And we make sure that that's in every ingredient, every product.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I was lucky enough to play French Lick this summer, but it was 95 degrees and 95 humidity, and I was downing your hydration gummies throughout the round, and without that, I think I would have been in trouble. We're used to 95% high humidity in Scotland, but not with 95 degrees.
No, I've been in Scotland when it's that hot. There's not much air conditioning in Scotland either. So
There's not much air conditioning. There is not. So just, you've got a great product range there. What's the most popular product?
The good stuff is the most popular. It's still people, I was thinking, I look at coffee as the vehicle to get the good stuff in you. You drink coffee, I think the results are 65 to 70% of the world start their day with a cup of coffee, right? So what I'm trying to get out to people is stop putting bad stuff in something that is actually really good for you. So, if you load it with sugar and in some of the milks and stuff that are flavored, it's just not good for you. You're destroying the benefits of coffee. If you can have it black, have it black. But if you're going to add something to it, the good stuff are great ingredients that will actually enhance the flavor or profile of the coffee. And then if you need milks or you feel like you need some sugar, use things like honey, some of the almond or oat milk I like, some of those are really good as well. But what we found is most people that just add the good stuff, they don't need to put any sweetener or any milk in their coffee anymore. So it just makes it really good.
Yeah, we are actually really proud to be working with you guys for your attention to the planet. I know you use fair trade.
We do.
You're sourcing it responsibly, etc. So congratulations on that, and that's something that resonates with us at All Wilco, with all the brands that we work with. Jimmy asked us lots of questions. He was very intrigued about this conversation. For Wellness appears it seems within the same ecosystem as TPI, in that it serves the connection between wellness and performance. So if TPI is physical and For Wellness is nutritional, is there an opportunity for a new venture that serves a different aspect of peak performance? Maybe one that integrates mindset, recovery practices? What's next on the table for you guys?
Yeah, so, TPI kind of runs its own, although we're into multiple sports. We actually have a baseball lab as well. So we started studying baseball. We work with about 12 major league teams. So we look at pitching and hitting biomechanics. So we did that really because I wanted to understand rotary athletes and baseball players. Everyone that comes in swings the golf club at a very high rate of speed. And then we started studying baseball and going, well, why isn't anybody looking at this? So it was kind of, again, that cross sport, looking at golf and bringing things that we had learned from the biomechanics and force plate into this space. And then we also look at NFL quarterbacks. So some of those guys come in and we look at their throwing mechanics. So the TPI structure, we really can look at any sport. Like the body is the body, the screen is the screen, right? That alternating pattern exists with everybody. And then you need some expertise to look at biomechanics and force and pressure, and then talk to the great coaches from those sports and go, what are you looking at and why? And maybe we can look at some things a little bit differently. So on the TPI side, we're constantly pushing the envelope of looking at everything and anything, not just golf, but integrating other sports. The evolution of that is we are already looking at nutrition. We do pretty excessive profiles there. We use a gentleman by the name of Dr. Andy Galpin, who is renowned for this. And Andy's a good friend of ours. A lot of our players go through his rapid program, which really looks at your blood. And you know, blood is the great indicator of what's going on inside. And if I can optimize that, then I can optimize your brain and your mind and so on and so forth. You know, I've also gone down the track of looking at genome sequencing for athletes, only because that tells me a lot about metabolizing and metabolism. There are some of us that are hypermetabolizers, and that means when you take a nutritional supplement, it has no effect. It goes right through you. And you need to know that because you spend a lot of money on nutritional supplements, and you need to understand that, well, geez, maybe, you know, there is a way around that. Well, there is, because if you know your genome, you can actually look at vitamins that bind together. And one of them your body might take. And if you bind the other one with it, it'll take it. Whereas if it's on its own, it'll pass it and it doesn't have any effect. So those are kind of those advanced things that you start to look at. How that relates to the brain and the mind, I think this is the new frontier, is looking at this and looking at vision. I think vision is a huge aspect that goes unlooked at. And we're looking at that. And that brings me to this next gummy I'm doing, the focus gummy, because it's not just for the brain. There is a product that crosses the blood-brain barrier. But the one I'm really looking at, which kind of crosses this TPI interface, is this new gummy, because we have three vitamins in it that go directly after vision. And they're in the eye, but the eye doesn't produce a lot of them. And what you don't realize, why the eyes are becoming such a huge piece, is of what we're doing now. Today, we spend more time in blue light and looking at mobile devices, looking at TV screens, looking at, you know, computer screens, and we are damaging our eyes faster than I've ever seen, right? And we can get ahead of that if you understand what the eyes really need every day to regenerate themselves. And the eyes are the software program to your brain. So, you know, if you start to lose vision in any aspect, especially as an athlete, it can affect your golf, it can affect your distance control, it can affect your putting, it can affect so many things. And we know there's a deterioration in vision as we get into our 40s and 50s. It's why we need glasses and so on and so forth. But we need to start this earlier. And we need to get our younger people really looking at taking care of these, because they're getting hammered. And that's kind of my next frontier with For Wellness.
It's quite fascinating. You're probably aware we're quite linked into a footwear company called Vivo Barefoot. We're big fans of theirs.
I wear them. I have 2 pairs right here. So
yeah,
I'm a big fan as well.
But what's been fascinating that we've had 5 or 6 PGA golf caddies now move into wearing our footwear. And I thought it was just because of, you know, the amount of walking, the heavy bag, etc. And I think it's Danny Stahl, who's Nick Taylor's caddy, I think, said, no, Andy, this is to do with putting. I goes, what do you mean it's to do with putting? He said, if you watch all the golfers now and everyone now, we are putting our feet. And I started watching it. It seems to be a new trend. And he said, because the eye tricks us sometimes, is that we want to do this. So it's quite interesting that you're focusing a lot on vision, because it can, you know, everyone talks about the caddy read the putt wrong for me. Did they really? Or did you just not listen?
Well, to your point, I mean, those are the 2 aspects of performance that we are studying, is the foot and the shoe, because it should be part of your equipment, not thought about as a fashion statement or something that feels comfortable. If you put a soft shoe on, you're dissipating the force that you're pushing against the ground, and the ground pushes back. So it can actually affect your rotational speed and your speed. I've had players in barefoot on force plates that hit it much further than they do when they put shoes on. Why? It's the same swing, but all we did was take the shoe off. So, in many cases, Vivo, what they're doing is great. They used to have a golf shoe in
No,
2014, but
no,
they
I
didn't.
know. I've still
They,
got it, the purple
yeah, well,
one.
they need to bring it back because there's a lot of guys that would wear it because there's only one other company out there, but no one's educating. They need to do a better job of educating people on why, and we know the education behind that. So to your point, that's a big aspect. And I can understand why, caddies are using it because there is a form of putting where you read the green by judging slope. You need both. You need the eyes and the feet.
Yeah.
You can't just have the feet because the
Mhm.
vision is also a huge aspect as well. But I would agree with you. I think those are two areas in sport, visualizing, and this is the pathway to your brain. So, there's products that we use now and that we gamify that for neuroscience activate the brain, and they're games that you play. A lot of these people, I mean, look at Formula One now, nobody's getting in a car, right? The cars are too expensive. They're getting a simulator and doing all
Yeah.
their work. There's actually Max Verstappen. They say that the reason that he's getting beaten this year is he's spending more time playing simulator games than he is driving his F1 car. So, but
Interesting.
there are simulators and people again behind screens, vision, huge aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as someone who's gone through vision therapy as a result of concussion, I am super excited for your new gummy coming out.
Thank you.
As we wrap up today's conversation, I'd love to ask you a question that's close to our podcast's heart, which is in regards to kindness. Is there someone who you'd like to acknowledge for their influence or inspiration in your life or career?
Well, I think you probably get the answers are probably the same. It would probably be, you've always got to look at your parents and what they've done for you, because a lot of times as they get older, and mine are older now, you kind of neglect the fact that you're where you are because of what they did for you. However minor or major that could be. In my life, it would be my wife. I've been married now 32 years, and I married my college sweetheart, and I
Oh, we've
couldn't
spoken
do
to
what I
Mara. She
did.
sounds lovely. She
Yeah,
sounds
I
lovely. Yeah,
couldn't do
yeah.
what I do. I wouldn't be the person I am without her, because she allowed me to do this. And this isn't easy when you're raising kids. And she was a very, busy entrepreneur, had an incredible job that allowed me to make no money and just go, try and be a golfer initially. And then it flipped once we had our second child, and I got to a stage of performance that I could repay the favor and then take it
Mm.
to another level. And she could look after our kids and give them the life that they deserve. And so that would be my most influential person, is my wife.
Just quickly before you sign off, don't forget to visit network.allwellco.com and join our professional network. You'll get to enjoy exclusive benefits from brands we love and have access to a community where learning and professional development are always at the forefront of everything we do.